Okay, so today we are going to rant about some books I really don't like. So I generally try to keep it pretty positive here on my channel. I really like giving recommendations for great books, but I don't know, man, today I just really feel like ranting. If ranting isn't your thing, you don't have to watch this video. I put like 4 or 5 videos up a week. There will be more for you. But today I just really want to talk about some books I've hated. If you're new here, you probably haven't heard me rant about any of these. If you've been here for a while, you may have forgotten some of these because there are some on this list that I read years ago. Not every book that I have hated, not every book that I've given 1 or 2 stars is on this list. I actually only have a handful of books on this list. These are the books that after I've had quite a bit of distance from them, they're still seared into my mind, and I still feel like talking about how much I didn't like them. One of them is fairly recent. Hi, hello, Editing Murphy here with terrible lighting. Just popping in to let you know that I did end up going into spoilers with almost all of these books in order to properly rant about them. So there will be timestamps in the description for each of them so that you can hop around if you want to. Also, several of these books do have sensitive or mature themes explored, and I delve into those themes quite a bit in order to properly rant about them. So if you have kids around that you maybe don't want to hear some of this stuff, or if you don't want to talk about some of this stuff, then I have tags on each of the books for what content warnings there are so that you can also skip around if you want. Okay, onto the video. The first book on this list, a lot of you have probably heard me talk about because I only read it like a year ago, Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. This is a book that is very popular here on BookTube. A lot of people love this book. A lot of people love this series. I do not. There are a lot of reasons why this book didn't work for me. Simple reasons as well as more expansive reasons. The simple reasons are Assassin Training Schools doesn't work for me. I've read several books with this premise, with this baseline, and I just don't, I don't get the tension of it. I don't care about watching kids train to be assassins. If I'm gonna follow an assassin, I wanna watch them be an assassin. And just in general, it's not something that appeals that much to me. Footnotes, I don't like them. This book is littered with footnotes, a lot of times in the middle of action, just to give me some abstract world building that I didn't even need. It's very jarring. A lot of people say to just skip the footnotes, but I can't say I liked a book if I skip half the book. So I read the daggum things, and they were dumb, and they weren't necessary over half the time. But then you have the things that I hated a lot. One of them is Jay Kristoff's writing style in this daggum book. When I say flowery, it doesn't encompass what happened here. The man's prose in this book were the essence of try too hard. Not only the overuse of metaphors in this book was wild. I mean, just about everything had to be made into an elaborate metaphor. The problem is that the metaphors were usually really bad. Half the time they didn't even make sense. Like, he would go onto this long, elaborate metaphor, and by the time you got there, you don't even know what we were talking about. Then there was also the fact that the metaphors were so repetitive. There was one character who had a silverware smile, whatever that means, and every single time this character walked into a room, he was introduced as that man with the silverware smile. He looked at me with that silverware smile. He grinned with that silverware smile. And that is how, oh my goodness, every single metaphor seemed to be used, or simile seemed to be used in this book. It was just so repetitive, and they weren't even good, so it was just repeating bad metaphors. There was another character that was as beautiful as a fresh suicide. I don't remember how it went exactly, but it was when he was introduced, he was as beautiful as a fresh suicide. Beautiful to look at now, but rotting after it's been in the box for a while. What are you even saying, man? I don't know Jay Kristoff's life, but if you've ever seen a fresh suicide, your simile sucks, man. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, it's incredibly repetitive. So this character who's very prominent in the book, his suicide beauty is mentioned on so many pages, and it's a terrible metaphor, and stop using it. So I really didn't like Jay Kristoff's writing style. Then you have a lot of weird choices made throughout the book. I'm only going to mention one because I don't want to rant forever about only one book. But there are weird things that happen in this book. These teens that are in this assassin training school, one class that they got to take was the art of seduction, because it's very important when you're an assassin to know when to fade into the shadows and when to come out front and seduce someone so that you can be a good assassin. Okay, fine, sure, whatever. It's weird, but sure. Okay, let's teach teenagers how to seduce adults. Here's the fun thing. There's magic in this world. And one thing that our main character got out of this class was that she got a magical, you're hot now. So she got this little transformation where she got to be hotter because that's important for the seduction stuff. So she walks into a room and now everybody looks at her when before she was just so ugly. Now she's super hot. And part of that is that she got a magical boob job. Yep, this teenage girl got a magical boob job to make her hot so that she could be an effective assassin, because we all know assassins can't have flat chests. That'd be a no-no. There are so many choices like this throughout this book that I'm just reading it and I'm thinking, but why'd you do it? Why'd you do it? Was it really necessary? Was this truly part of the book that needed to happen? Next book on this list was really popular on BookTube years ago. People don't really talk about it anymore, and it's not because people have decided they don't like it. It's just that, booktubers have moved on. But I hated it, and I'm going to talk about it. It's called Paper Princess. The premise of this is that there is this teenage girl who is a stripper because, actually, it's such a bad premise. Her mom, oh my gosh, I can't remember. Her mom died. And she didn't want social services to know that she was now an orphan. So she was lying about her mom still being alive, as if there's not records of death and they wouldn't know. So she's lying about her mom still being alive, and then she's working as a stripper so that she can pay the bills so that she doesn't get put in foster care. Then her late father, her father's passed away, his friend from somewhere over there hears that his friend's daughter is still around. I read this book like 3 years ago. I still remember it so. Okay, so he hears about his friend's daughter and he's like, oh no, I should go save her. So he flies across the country, goes to the strip club, gets a lap dance from this teenage girl, and then stops the lap dance because he's a good guy, and whisks her away to his rich home. He has a whole lot of kids. These kids are the worst. And they're mean to her. They're horrible to her. They don't want her there. There's a lot of weird stuff that happens in this book. Like at one point in gym class, they steal her clothes to humiliate her, so she just walks through the school in her underwear. And I don't know, everybody's fine with it. The kids at one point, again, steal her clothes while she's in the shower, and then they have video cameras set up in their house because they want it on camera for her to run through the house naked, humiliated. They think it'd be a funny joke. That's a funny joke, isn't it? The dad of this household has a girlfriend who he has sex in the open with, like at the dinner table, because he doesn't think his kids are around. But the kids walk in on him doing stuff like this regularly. He's a good dad. It's good. Actually, he's not really depicted as a good dad. It's a mess. I didn't like this book, but I pushed through it because someone who I, at that point, trusted to have a similar opinion about books as me said that it was great. So I just kept reading thinking, it's gonna get good. It will get good. And it didn't. Anyway, the thing that really threw me over the edge with this book, from just being like, I don't get this, I don't get this, I don't get this. The thing that really threw me over the edge is one of the kids who is absolutely horrible to her is her age. It's obvious from the start that he's going to be the love interest. And there is one scene where she goes to a party and gets drugged because some guy at the party wants to rape her. And the boys, the kids that are around her age, save her. They rescue her. We don't want that to happen to her. They take her home, but because she's drugged, she's super horny. And they decide the right way to handle this is is to get her off. So this drugged teenage girl, the guy who's supposed to be the love interest, takes her to his bedroom. And you know what? I don't understand. I don't understand how it's romantic or acceptable to do this to a drugged teen, but I don't know. It's dramatic, I guess, and people like it, and I couldn't. You'll find a pattern with me is generally if there is some sort of abusive nature to the romance, I tend to not find it romantic. On a lighter note, let's talk about the storied life of A.J. Fikry. This was a recent read for me, and no weird sex stuff. This is a literary fiction, and it was one that I really thought I was gonna love. I even recommended it to people before I had finished it, and then I had to run back to those friends and tell them, no, I changed my mind. So the premise of this book is that it's a guy, I can't remember his age now, he's middle-aged, and he recently lost his wife, and he's very cranky, reasonably so, because he's grief-ridden, and he runs a bookstore, and he's a cranky old bookstore runner guy. And then a kid is left in his bookstore with a note basically saying, "Raise my kid for me, please," and so he does. There's a lot of stuff in this book that's glossed over that really bothered me. Like, I remember there was a line, well, a lot of things actually. When he got the kid, the police were just like, yeah, the kid can stay with you while we try to find a better home for it. No problem. I don't know you, random middle-aged man, but yes, you can have this 2-year-old girl in your home. It'll be fine. The police officer did vaguely know him, but they didn't really have any sort of relationship at this point in the book. And then, like, random things were glossed over about the adoption took the normal amount of time, a little bit under a year, and it all went fine for the most part. There were a couple hiccups, but it was fine. And then we just move on. First of all, adoption does not take under a year. It takes 2 to 4 years. I know this because I'm in the process of adoption. Second of all, why'd you gloss over it? This is a really important part of his life. Why are we glossing over it? And this happened a lot throughout the book, where really big things were happening in this man's storied life that we're supposed to be following. And it's just like, I don't really feel like writing that part. And so we just move on. The book took a really big turn at the halfway point, and it stopped being this slow story about this man's life and how he changed throughout the things that happened in his life. And it turned into a romance of sorts, not a but the focus was more on him finding love in the second half, and I really didn't like that shift because I was loving this slow story of the man's life, but I figured it would come back around in the end and it would still be a satisfying read. Unfortunately, it did not. It ended up being horrible. There was this thing that happened near the beginning of the book where he has this thing that got stolen from him, and this thing is quite valuable. So we finally get back around to it, and I knew we were going to because the book has really heavy foreshadowing, so I knew we were going to come back around to it. And when we do, it's the most convoluted, nonsense stuff that doesn't even have any payoff. But basically, this person took the thing so that they could pay off this other person, and then this other person held on for it for 2 years, but then couldn't really do anything with it, so they came back and gave it back to the person, but then this person couldn't do anything with it, so they put it in their closet. Then they had this other person over at their house for a night, and then that person saw the thing, but didn't want to say anything because he didn't want to mess up the relationship, so he just didn't say anything for a long time. And then later, when AJ is about to lose his life and he needs money to pay for his surgery, then this guy remembers the thing that's in the closet, and it's just been there for 10 years, I guess. And then he tells her that he knew about the thing in the closet, and then they take it, and then they give it back to AJ, but in like a really discreet way so that he won't know about it, and then he can have it so that he is able to have the surgery to save his life, but then we skip that part of his life. So it's like this really convoluted, ridiculous thing to make this plot point happen. Like, it's this convoluted series of ridiculous events that finally get the stolen item back into the guy's hand so that he can pay for the surgery to save his life, only for us to then skip that part of his life. As soon as we got to the point where it's like, I can pay for surgery, then we just skip to the end. Why did we do it? Why did we do it? Why did we go through this convoluted thing just so that we could skip the purpose of the convoluted thing and just skip to the ending? And then the ending, I don't have any like moral problem with this book. People can like it. In fact, I know that this is a very well-loved book. And so I always feel bad kind of ragging on a book that somebody else loves. Well, usually I do. Today I just feel like ranting, so I'm kind of not holding back. But I think that I don't think that this book is is problematic. I don't really like that word, but I don't think that this book is problematic. I think that people are well within their rights to love it. I hated it because I hated the execution of it. It felt like a cheap tool being used instead of feeling like a deep exploration of pain that we have in common. And, I buddy read this over on my Patreon. Some people did love it. Some people felt similar to me. So I think that different people are going to come out of it different ways. So if you loved this book, more power to you. I totally respect that. I hated the execution of it, and that was what made it so low on my list. One more book for the ranting. This is also a relatively recent read. I read it last year, I think. Maybe I read it this year. It doesn't matter. The Duke and I. No, I definitely read it last year. Anyway, so there were two things that I hated about this book, and they were the two main characters. The main female character, I don't remember either of their names. The main female character, she was really clever and able to hold her own. It's a historical setting, and when she's being, like, when people are looking down on her, when people are teasing her, when people are being, when people are having double standards, she's very clever and witty and can stand up for herself, and she was really enjoyable to read in the beginning. The problem is she's smart until she isn't, and then she's really freaking dumb. I think she's like 22 years old in this book, and when she's about to get married, and her mom has to tell her how babies are made, like what it takes to make a baby, she's absolutely shocked and scandalized. And even after she had a sex talk with her mom, she still didn't really understand how it all worked. So her husband, who also is the worst, basically he doesn't want to get her pregnant, so I'm trying to put this tactfully, he would pull out every time they would have sex, and she just kind of was like, I wonder why he does that. I wonder what he's doing over there. I don't really understand it. Oh well, I'm probably pregnant now, right? So the thing is, here's the thing. The thing is, if you don't want to have kids, more power to you. Do what you want. But you don't take advantage of your spouse's lack of knowledge and lie to them and manipulate them. In this, I didn't like the way he handled it. He handled it very, very poorly. And then she found out what her husband was doing. She was very upset about it, so she raped him. I'm going to explain it, so if you want to click away, if you want to skip. Basically, what happened is they were having sex. She was on top, and he tried to pull out, and she would not let him. She forced herself down on him, forced him to finish inside of her, and then after that was all done and he had a big freak out because he didn't want to get her pregnant because he didn't want to pass something on to his kid, she felt good about it. She even had an internal monologue of, what I did wasn't okay, but you know what? I don't feel bad about it because I'm probably pregnant right now, and I feel pretty good about that. So not only is there just a ton of lying and manipulating happening from the get-go in this relationship, but there's actual rape happening, and she feels good about it. And then there's this whole thing where he just like leaves her and goes away for a while, and then she thinks she's pregnant, so she sends him a letter, and then he comes home, and by the time he's home she finds out that she's not pregnant, and then she's mad at him because she should be pregnant right now, and now there's probably no chance of her getting pregnant because she's probably not going to be able to pull that stunt again. And then he decides, you know what, maybe I do want a kid, and so they live happily ever after, and they're in a good relationship, and it's fine, and everything's fine. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with portraying flawed people, flawed relationships, people making big mistakes. I do think there's something wrong with depicting an extremely abusive relationship and then just like, it's romantic. I mean, these characters are portrayed as flawed, and we're not supposed to think that every one of their actions is good, but there's really no discussion. I mean, there was discussion, actually, when he came back and he was like, yeah, let's have a kid. And she said, I thought you were mad at me because of what I did to you. And he said, oh yeah, I didn't like that. Please don't do that again. But that's not why I was mad. I actually left for something else. and so he didn't even leave because of what she did to him. He wasn't even actually mad about that. He was just like, oh yeah, I didn't like that. Don't do that again. And she never felt bad about it. She felt like she did the right thing. And they are portrayed as flawed characters, but the relationship is still romantic. I know this because I read a whole lot of Goodreads reviews from people who love this book, and they're like, these people are flawed, but man, was that a romantic story. Where? Where was that a romantic story? When did that happen? I must have ripped those pages out. I didn't rip pages out of the book. I gave it to the library when I was done with it, but come on. Anyway, I actually feel kind of bad. I feel kind of bad now because I generally, like I said, I generally don't like going negative on my channel. If I do go negative, I try to keep it relatively like, hey, here's the reasons why this book didn't work for you. Respect to all who love it, moving forward. And I just really went in on this video, and I feel a little bit bad about it now. Please know that if I said really mean things about your favorite book, it's okay to love things that I hate. Those are just very extensive reasons why I hate them. Oh, also, I did want to give an honorable mention to Anna and the French Kiss, which used to be super popular and I hated so much. There's a really great Goodreads rant if you want to check it out, but it doesn't really belong on this list anymore because it's not popular anymore because most people that loved it grew up, realized it sucked, and then stopped loving it. Oh no, I'm so mean today. I feel kind of bad. I'm gonna end it there. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed the rant. If I hated on one of your favorite books, please know that I'm just being really extensive and salty about the stuff that I don't like, but please love your favorite books. It really doesn't, I have no stakes in the game of what other people love. This is just why I don't love these books. Anyway, that was the whole story. Please chat with me if you've read any of these books, if you also hated them, or if you loved them and why you did. I'd love to chat about that. And let me know what books you hate. I guess. I post videos every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.